Close your eyes for a moment, not to escape the world, but to finally see it clearly. What if I told you that every time you spoke a word with conviction, the universe shifted ever so slightly in your favor? What if I whispered in your ear that the money you chase is not somewhere out there, but right here, waiting, listening, responding? Now imagine standing in line at a store, ticket in hand. Your heart races, not with doubt, but with knowing. You've been here before, not just physically, but in your mind, 100 times. You've seen the numbers flash across the screen. You've heard the announcement. You've felt the check in your hands. Before it ever happened, it had already happened, because you lived it in your imagination. And all it took were a few sacred words. You see, I didn't win the lottery by chance. I didn't defy the odds because I was lucky. I created the outcome. I spoke it into reality. I lived the end before the beginning. And those words I repeated, they were not just affirmations. They were declarations of alignment. They were seeds I planted in the soil of the unseen, watered with faith, and harvested with bold expectancy. So many ask, how did you do it? They want the trick, the tactic, the shortcut. But I give them something far more powerful, the truth. And the truth is this: your outer world is nothing more than the echo of your inner convictions. You cannot receive what you do not first become. When I began speaking those words, I didn't merely say them, I embodied them. I felt the joy, the gratitude, the calm assurance, not once, not twice, but over and over until the lines between desire and possession blurred completely. The world had no choice but to match what I had already claimed. Skeptics laughed, doubters shook their heads, even those closest to me rolled their eyes. But I didn't speak to convince them. I spoke to command reality. I knew something they didn't. I understood the law most will never grasp. You are not here to beg from life, you are here to author it. Let me be clear, this is not about gambling. It's not about scratching tickets or chasing jackpots. It's about proving something far more divine, that you are the operant power in your universe, that your thoughts, your emotions, your spoken word, they are not idle. They are instruments of creation. And when you tune them, align them, believe in them, they do not return void. I won the lottery 8 times. Yes, 8. But the real miracle was not the money. It was the awakening. The realization that I had always held the key. This is your awakening too. Because you don't need to understand the odds. You need to understand yourself. You don't need luck. You need alignment. You don't need to chase. You need to claim. In the parts that follow, I'll share the exact words I repeated, the mental state I entered, and the spiritual law I obeyed without wavering. But more than that, I'll guide you to the place within you where wealth already lives, where success is not summoned, it's remembered, where the impossible becomes inevitable. Now ask yourself, are you ready to speak what's already yours? Are you ready to step into the reality that's been waiting for you to finally believe? Then let's begin. I didn't stumble upon these words in a book. I didn't find them written on some ancient scroll. I didn't borrow them from a millionaire or download them from a guru's course. They were revealed to me in a moment of desperation, when everything around me said lack, but something deeper within whispered wealth. I had no evidence, no fallback, just a quiet voice inside that insisted, you are not broke, you are becoming. That's when I stood up, looked into the mirror and said, it is already mine. I have already won. Simple, yes, but powerfully aligned. I repeated those words with the reverence of a sacred vow. Not once, not out of hope, not with fear in my voice, but over and over until my world matched my word. You see, the mind does not know the difference between what is imagined vividly and what is experienced physically. It reacts, it obeys, it creates. If you tell yourself you're in debt, your body feels anxiety, your decisions shrink, your frequency lowers, and your world reflects it. But if you stand in the same room, surrounded by bills, and declare, it is already mine, I have already won, something shifts. Not because the phrase has magic, but because you do. These words worked because I worked them. I didn't just say them, I felt them, I believed them. I walked as though they were already true. That's the secret. You must walk through life as if the money is already in your pocket, the opportunity already on its way, the blessing already at your doorstep. I remember one evening vividly. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, no food in the kitchen, barely a cent to my name. I closed my eyes and whispered those words, not in panic, but in peace. It is already mine. I have already won. And as I said them, I saw it. I saw myself holding the ticket. I saw the numbers align. I saw the celebration. The feeling was so real, I cried tears of joy as if it had just happened. Do you understand what that means? I lived the victory before it ever occurred. That is the law of assumption. That is the divine order. That is what makes the difference between wishing and receiving. There were no fireworks that night, no overnight miracle. But the inner change had been made. I had crossed a line in consciousness, and once you cross that line, the world cannot help but rearrange itself around your new belief. Days later, I bought a ticket, not from compulsion, but from a sense of completion. It was already mine, remember. I had already won. And sure enough, when the numbers were called, they matched. I didn't gasp. I didn't jump. I nodded, because the moment had already happened in my spirit. This was just the physical confirmation. People think manifestation is about getting, but it's not. It's about revealing. You don't pull things into your life. You pull the veil off what was always there. The wealth is not outside of you. The miracle is not in the machine. The blessing is not in the paper. It's in your perception. When that changes, everything changes. That first win was exhilarating, but it was also educational. I understood something most never do. The law works when you work it, so I kept going. Each time I repeated the words, I elevated. Each time I assumed the end, I moved closer to it. Each time I shut out doubt and leaned into belief, reality followed. Some called it luck, others said coincidence, but I knew deeply, unshakably, that I was simply reaping what I had sown in the invisible. The results were inevitable. You want to know the secret? Stop speaking about your circumstances and start speaking from your outcome. Stop affirming what you don't want and start embodying what you do. Those words I spoke, it is already mine. I have already won. They became more than a mantra. They became my state of being. And when your being aligns with your desire, the universe has no choice but to deliver. Let the skeptics mock, let the critics scoff, but you, listener, you who feel this stirring in your soul, you know this truth is for you. You feel the weight of possibility pressing against your chest. You sense the shift, the alignment, the yes from heaven. This is your call to speak not as a beggar, but as a builder, to declare not from emptiness, but from overflow, to walk as if your victory is already echoing through eternity, because it is. Now let's go deeper. I will now take you into the precise mental atmosphere I lived in before each win. How I protected my vibration, guarded my imagination, and never once let the outer world dictate my belief. But for now, I leave you with this. Say it with me. It is already mine. I have already won. Again, it is already mine. I have already won. Say it not as a wish, but as a truth. And keep saying it until your world can no longer ignore your certainty. Winning didn't begin with a ticket. It didn't begin with the lottery machine or the draw or the numbers on a screen. It began the moment I became the version of myself who no longer needed to win, because within I already had. I didn't just speak the words, it is already mine, I have already won. I built a version of me who couldn't lose, a version of me who didn't wonder if it would happen, but who woke up each day asking how it would unfold. That's the real key. You're not chasing a result, you're stepping into an identity. You're not asking life to surprise you, you're remembering who you were before doubt crept in, before logic limited you, before the world trained you to shrink your expectations. I built that version of myself with discipline, with imagination, with stubborn belief. Every morning I would close my eyes, and before the day could tell me who I was, I told myself, I didn't need the world to affirm me anymore. I stopped looking for external signs because I became the sign. I imagined myself differently. I walked differently. I responded to life like someone who was already in possession of the outcome. When bills showed up, I smiled. I knew they were proof that abundance was forming. They were nothing but shadows soon to be erased by the rising light of my belief. When people doubted me, I didn't argue. I had no time to explain a future they couldn't see. I was too busy building it in my own mind. I stopped participating in conversations that repeated lack. I didn't speak of trying. I didn't say maybe one day. I said it's already unfolding. I said it's mine. I said I have already won. Over time, something magical happened. My nervous system adjusted. My inner world grew still. My thoughts stopped panicking. My spirit, once anxious, became like a calm lake reflecting a clear sky. I wasn't manifesting money. I was becoming wealth itself. And once I became that version of myself, the money showed up as a match, not as a miracle. The second lottery win came after a long walk. I had spent hours in silence, just visualizing, just embodying. Not from desperation, but from deep reverence. I walked into a store, bought the ticket, and I didn't wait for the result with nervous fingers. I went home and ate dinner with joy because I already had it. And when I saw the winning numbers again, I didn't scream. I whispered thank you because the outer event had only caught up with my inner world. It's not about convincing the world, it's about convincing you. You are the seed, you are the soil, you are the sun. Nothing can grow in your world unless it first grows in your imagination. I stopped checking the odds. I stopped watching the statistics. I stopped listening to anyone who said, be realistic. And when I did, I found freedom. Not just financial freedom, but spiritual freedom. I realized I was no longer ruled by external outcomes. I was the one writing the script. That's what happens when you become the version of yourself who has already won. You're not surprised by blessings. You're not desperate for signs. You live in the knowing that life is catching up to the reality you've already designed within. I carried myself like someone who had already received the deposit. I spoke as if I was already managing wealth. I gave thanks for checks I had not yet received. Not because I was trying to trick the universe, but because I had already received them in the dimension that matters most, consciousness. This is where many miss it. They try to attract abundance while still thinking like someone in lack. They speak wealth but carry the energy of fear. They visualize success while doubting if it's possible. That split in belief is what delays the outcome. You cannot manifest from conflict, you must become whole. And you become whole when your words, emotions, identity, and actions match. The version of me who won the lottery 8 times wasn't lucky. He was aligned. I didn't win and then become confident. I became confident and then I won. I didn't win and then start thinking abundantly. I started thinking abundantly and then I won. It's never about chasing the thing. It's about becoming the person for whom that thing is a natural result. Say it again. It is already mine. I have already won. Say it until your cells respond. Say it until your posture changes. Say it until you walk into rooms like someone the universe already favors, because it does. You are not asking for too much. You are simply remembering who you are and claiming what's been waiting for you the entire time. Your voice is not weak. It is a tuning fork for reality. Your word is not empty. It is the brushstroke painting your next moment. Stop waiting. Stop begging. Stop wondering. Become, and everything must follow. Every great moment in my life was rehearsed. Not in the outer world, but in the secret place of the mind. The lottery wins didn't start with the numbers. They started with the feeling. I rehearsed that feeling so many times that it became more familiar to me than failure. I walked through it before the world gave me permission to touch it. This is what most don't understand. They want the result without ever visiting the experience internally. They wait for confirmation before celebration. But I reversed that order completely. I celebrated first. I wept with joy before any evidence arrived. I felt the rush of victory while still walking in what the world calls lack. But lack isn't real. It's a projection of an untrained mind. It's a shadow cast by forgetfulness. When you remember who you are, when you live from the truth that everything is finished in spirit before it arrives in form, lack disappears. Each day I took time to sit in silence and close my eyes. I would breathe deeply, not to escape, but to create. I would picture my hands holding the ticket, but more than that, I felt what it was like to win. I felt the calm, the confidence, the confirmation. And I didn't just do this once. I did it every day. Before 1 cent arrived, I was already a winner. Before a single number aligned, I was already there. In my inner world, I had already walked into the store, read the results, and smiled. not because I was shocked, but because I had seen this moment so many times that it had lost its novelty. This is what it means to live in the end. You no longer react to the world, you instruct it. And when doubt tried to creep in, I didn't fight it, I ignored it, I replaced it, I redirected my focus back to the truth. It is already mine, I have already won. Those words weren't empty, they weren't ritual, they were bridges. Every repetition connected me back to the future I had already claimed. You can't win if you don't first believe you deserve to win. And that belief doesn't come from books. It comes from boldness. It comes from doing something most people are too afraid to try, feeling joy before the reason to feel it shows up. I trained my nervous system to handle overflow. I trained my mind to expect miracles. I trained my spirit to rest in certainty. This inner rehearsal became my reality, and reality, like a loyal servant, followed the blueprint I gave it. I didn't visualize just to see. I visualized to become. I didn't imagine just to escape. I imagined to embody. The power of assumption lies in this. When your imagined experience becomes so vivid, so emotional, so regular, it becomes indistinguishable from fact. And when that happens, you no longer need evidence. You carry proof in your energy. You wear success in your posture. You breathe wealth in every word. That's when the world bows. That's when doors open. That's when money shows up, not as a shock, but as a servant obeying its master. The third lottery win came at a time when I was emotionally drained. Life had thrown a storm at me. Everything was shaking, but even then I didn't collapse into fear. I leaned harder into imagination. I doubled down on my declaration. I held my inner state like a sword, and that sword cut through every obstacle. That win wasn't just financial, it was spiritual confirmation that reality must yield to the one who refuses to shift their inner world. I didn't need to beg, I didn't need to hustle, I didn't need to pray from panic. I just needed to remember who I was and repeat the truth until it became flesh. What you speak, you build. What you assume, you attract. What you feel, you fast track. Your life is not waiting on a number, it's waiting on your alignment. You don't need to chase, you need to receive. Receiving begins in the rehearsal. Act like the version of yourself who already has it. Speak like the one who never worries. Move like the one who has already crossed the finish line. The moment you become that person, the world becomes your mirror. Now say it with deeper awareness. It is already mine. I have already won. Don't say it with hope. Say it with memory. Don't say it with fear. Say it with authority. Don't say it with question. Say it with finality. You are not far from your breakthrough. You're only far from the awareness that it's already complete. Once you shift that, everything else rushes to meet you. So stop waiting for signs. Be the sign. Stop waiting for the result. Live the result. Stop asking when. Start saying now. You will never rise above the world around you until you stop bowing to it. The mistake most people make is thinking that what they see is final. They look at their bank account, their job, their limitations, and they let those things dictate their emotional state. But I learned something that changed everything. Your current reality is not the truth. It's just the result of yesterday's belief. The moment I grasped this, I made a decision that became the foundation for every win, every breakthrough, every dollar that flowed into my life. I refused to let the outer world tell me who I was. I stopped negotiating with facts. I stopped pleading with circumstances. I stopped asking reality for permission to believe. I realized that I was the cause and reality was just the effect. So when life said, "You're broke," I said, "I am wealthy and I live in abundance." When my wallet was empty, I said, "It is already mine. I have already won." And when nothing around me supported my belief, I doubled down on it. This wasn't blind faith. It was inner command. It was a bold declaration that no matter what the world tried to show me, I knew who I was becoming, and I would not be talked out of it. Because here's the truth most never discover. Reality is fluid. Reality bends. Reality rearranges itself to match the dominant state of your consciousness. If you let the world convince you of lack, you'll keep recreating it. But if you hold your inner world steady, Even in the face of contradiction, the outer world must surrender. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The fourth time I won, nothing felt magical. It didn't feel mystical or lucky. It felt normal. Why? Because I had been living in the energy of a winner for so long that anything else would have been the surprise. This is where most people fail. They speak words of faith in the morning and collapse into doubt by the afternoon. They visualize success for 5 minutes and then spend the rest of the day worrying. They try to hold belief, but their emotions are still enslaved to what they see. But I understood that you can't serve two worlds. You can't affirm abundance and entertain fear. You can't walk as a winner and speak like a victim. You can't declare it is mine and then question the delivery. So I built walls around my mind. I guarded my state. I didn't let external noise infect my inner conviction. I stopped watching news that promoted fear. I stopped listening to friends who spoke lack. I even stopped entertaining my own doubts. When they came, I didn't argue with them. I replaced them. I repeated my truth until my subconscious absorbed it like oxygen. It is already mine. I have already won. I said it when the world screamed otherwise. I said it when people mocked me. I said it when I felt nothing. And slowly, my world transformed. Not because I forced it, but because I refused to betray my inner vision. You have to understand, this isn't about pretending. This isn't delusion. This is spiritual authority. You are not meant to mirror the world. You are meant to mold it. And that molding happens not by effort, but by assumption, by the inner state you refuse to let go of. When I walked into a store to buy a ticket, I didn't go with anxiety. I went with joy. I wasn't desperate. I was already fulfilled. That piece of paper wasn't determining my fate. It was confirming what I already believed. And if that ticket didn't win, I wasn't shaken, because the belief wasn't tied to the paper. It was tied to the promise I made to myself. I will never speak from lack again. I will never agree with limitation. I will never surrender my vision to temporary appearances. That's the real win. The lottery was the result. The inner transformation, that was the reward. Because once you learn how to dominate your inner world, there is nothing the outer world can withhold from you. You stop hoping and start knowing. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop waiting and start walking in possession. There's a moment in every journey where you must choose, do I accept what I see, or do I command what I believe? And I chose belief, again and again, until the world bowed in surrender. That's the invitation being extended to you now, to stop negotiating with doubt, to stop making decisions based on fear, to stop shrinking to fit a world that was never meant to define you. Say the words. Say them like you mean them. Say them until the air around you shifts. It is already mine. I have already won. Feel that. That's not imagination. That's reality, responding to the one who finally remembered their power. I stopped giving the visible world all the credit. I stopped bowing to the facts. I stopped reacting to what my five senses told me, because I realized something most people never dare to accept. The invisible world is more real than the one I can touch. You want to know how I won the lottery 8 times? Because I stopped believing in evidence and I started believing in essence. I chose to believe in what I felt, not in what I saw, because what you see is the past. It's a reflection, a delayed echo of a previous belief. But what you feel, what you boldly imagine, assume, and declare, that's the seed. That's the beginning of all things. I didn't check my bank account to confirm my worth. I didn't look at my circumstances to verify my power. I closed my eyes and I walked into the life I had designed within. I breathed it in. I soaked it into my bones. I treated that inner world as my dwelling place, and I made a decision. I will live from this unseen truth until the seen has no choice but to submit. That's not delusion. That's divine confidence. People say be realistic. But realism is just surrender to what has already been created. I wasn't interested in realism. I was interested in reality creation. That's the difference between those who keep waiting for a miracle and those who become the miracle. The 5th time I won, it didn't even feel like a surprise. In fact, I had seen it in my spirit 2 weeks before it happened. I woke up one morning and said to myself, this is the week. not out of hope, not out of emotion, but out of quiet, spiritual knowing. Because I had trained my inner eye to see beyond appearances, I had made the invisible my home, and what you call impossible, I called familiar. When you live this way, something incredible happens. Life starts listening to you. You no longer beg, you no longer wish, you command. Not through arrogance, but through alignment. You speak from a place of unity with your desire. You no longer see it as something separate, you become one with it. You and the result merge, you and the outcome fuse. There's no longer a gap, no more longing, no more future tense, only now. I lived from the end. I walked in gratitude before the blessing arrived. I gave thanks for things the world had yet to see. And in doing so, I created a vibration that the universe couldn't ignore. Because gratitude is a magnet for miracles, and assumption is a weapon against delay. Every time I closed my eyes and said, "It is already mine," I have already won. I wasn't just repeating words. I was locking in a reality that didn't need permission from logic or time. Some nights I sat in silence for hours, not visualizing for fun, but entering the scene. I felt the texture of the money in my hands. I imagined the scent of the paper. I heard the voice of the clerk announcing the win. I replayed that scene over and over until it felt more real than the room I was sitting in. And you know what happened? The outer world bowed again. Not because I pushed harder, but because I believed deeper. This is the part most people skip. They speak for a few minutes and then collapse into old patterns. They visualize once, but never return to the scene. They affirm, but with no emotional charge. And then they wonder why nothing changes. It changes when you change. It moves when your inner world becomes unshakable. It arrives when you stop asking when and start declaring now, because nothing will test you more than silence. There were days when it looked like nothing was happening, but I didn't flinch. I didn't beg. I didn't question. I rested in the invisible, and in that rest, the miracles formed. I don't care what your current situation looks like. That's not the truth. The truth is what you're willing to believe without seeing. The truth is what you hold to when everything else says, let go. The truth is what you assume so completely that the world is forced to catch up. When I say I won 8 times, I don't say it with pride. I say it with conviction, because the real prize was never the money. It was the awareness, the realization that the law works, not occasionally, not for some, but for anyone who dares to believe the invisible more than the seen. So now, say it like you live there. Say it like your reality depends on it, because it does. It is already mine. I have already won. Let the world watch you in silence. Let the doubters laugh. Let the time pass. None of it matters. Because when you become rooted in the unseen, the visible must bow. It must. By the time I won the 8th time, I wasn't even keeping count. I wasn't chasing validation. I wasn't hungry for proof, because the real victory had already occurred deep within me. The money, the numbers, the checks, those were just the side effects of a transformation far more powerful than any prize. The final win wasn't even the largest one, but it was the most meaningful, because by then I understood exactly what had happened. I had not manifested wealth. I had remembered who I was. I had not begged for blessings. I had become the blessing. This is what I need you to hear. The process you're looking for, the words you repeat, the visualizations you practice, they are not tools to make something appear. They are bridges to bring you into alignment with the version of yourself who already has it. And when you meet that version, everything changes. You no longer need to win, you expect to win. You no longer hope for provision, you walk in it. You no longer fear the future, you speak it into form. Every declaration becomes law. Every thought becomes architecture. Every emotion becomes permission for the universe to deliver. I walked that path. I lived that truth. I won over and over because I refused to see myself as someone who had to earn favor. I knew I was the favor. I knew I was the one reality obeys, not by force, but by frequency. So let me give you what you came here for, the words, the exact words that unlocked a river of abundance in my life, not because they're magic, but because they're alignment. It is already mine. I have already won. I said it in silence. I said it aloud. I said it when I felt strong. I said it when I felt broken. I said it when I had nothing. I said it when I was surrounded by doubt. I said it so many times that my subconscious stopped asking how and started accepting now. I didn't beg the universe. I partnered with it. I didn't knock on closed doors. I walked through them in my mind until they opened in the world. I didn't count the days. I collapsed time. Because in the realm of spirit, there is no delay. The moment you assume it is done, and that's what I need you to walk away with. The lottery wins were never about money. They were about remembering my place. They were about realizing the truth that we are not observers of life. We are authors of it. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not waiting. You are becoming aware. You are stepping into the most powerful realization of your life, that your words shape reality, that your feelings create frequency, that your belief is the birthplace of all things visible. So say it one last time. Let it settle in your bones. Let your past fall off your shoulders. Let your doubts burn to ashes. Let your spirit rise with clarity. It is already mine. I have already won. Say it and mean it. Say it and feel it. Say it and watch the world obey. Because when you believe like that, when you live like that, when you surrender everything else for that knowing, then you don't just win once. You keep winning again and again and again, just like I did. And now it's your turn. You are not here to beg life for crumbs. You are not born to chase what already belongs to you. You are here to remember who you are and to step into the fullness of that truth. Not tomorrow, not one day, but now. There is a great secret hidden in plain sight, one that the world overlooks as it keeps chasing, struggling, yearning. And yet this secret has always been simple. Act as if you already have everything. That is the doorway. That is the power. That is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Everything in your life is responding not to what you wish were true, but to what you assume is already true. When you walk as if you are loved, the world will mirror love back to you. When you speak as if abundance flows through you, the gates of provision will open. When you breathe as if peace lives within you, the storms outside will lose their power. The key is not in effort, but in assumption, not in struggle, but in inner knowing. The world outside is but a shadow of the world within, and to change it, you do not wrestle with it. You rest in your knowing of what already is. People think they must wait until the evidence shows up before they feel the joy. But the truth is that the joy must show up before the evidence. That is the divine reversal, the higher law. The joy is not a reaction, it is the cause. You do not wait to see your life improve to believe that it has. You believe it first, feel it deeply, and act from that knowing, and then, only then, does the evidence obediently appear to match your state. The world rearranges itself around your inner conviction. What would change today if you stopped asking, how will this happen, and started declaring, it already has? Would your posture change? Would your tone soften with peace? Would you treat others differently because you're no longer trying to earn what is already yours? Would you stop comparing yourself to those around you because you no longer feel behind? The one who assumes their desire is already fulfilled walks differently. They radiate. They don't grasp. They attract. Because they are not trying to become, they are being. Most people live in a constant rehearsal of lack. They rehearse disappointment. They wake up and recite limitations in their mind like daily affirmations of struggle. But what if instead you rehearse success? What if your inner dialogue shifted to match the life you claim to want? What if your imagination was no longer a place of fantasy but the workshop of creation? When you act as if you already have everything, you collapse the distance between yourself and your desire. You are no longer preparing for it, you are it. The mind will argue. It will say, but it's not real yet, I don't see it. That's because you've been trained to see with your eyes first instead of your spirit. But sight follows belief. The invisible shapes the visible, not the other way around. When you step into the feeling of your wish fulfilled, when you embody that reality in your tone, your movements, your habits, you become a magnet to all that belongs to that state. You are no longer a seeker, you are a vessel. No striving, just receiving. This is not about pretending in a superficial sense. It is about embodying deeply. It is not fantasy, it is faith. Faith is assuming that which is unseen is already yours and acting accordingly. The world may not understand this. It will say, be realistic. But your spirit knows a higher truth. What the world calls delusion, faith calls vision. And vision is not waiting for evidence. Vision creates it. So walk into the room like the deal is already done. Speak like you already know the outcome. Give thanks before the miracle shows up. Because gratitude is not the result, it is the activator. Feel it now, be it now, assume it now. That is not arrogance, that is alignment. You do not ask the sun to shine, it shines because that is its nature. You do not plead with the ocean to wave, it moves because it was made to. And you were made to manifest the unseen into form. You already have everything. The only delay is your belief that you do not. The only distance is the illusion of time. The moment you act from the end, the beginning bends to meet it. The moment you accept your inheritance in spirit, life rushes to deliver it in matter. There is nothing more to chase. It is all within you now. Walk in it, speak from it, live as if, and soon you will never have to act again. You will simply be. Assumption is the great creative force that silently governs every experience in your life. What you assume to be true, whether consciously or unconsciously, becomes the framework through which your reality unfolds. Most people spend their days trying to fix the outer world, reacting to conditions, adjusting circumstances, seeking answers through effort and control. But what if the answer was never outside you? What if the power to change your life rested not in your actions, but in your assumptions? Those quiet, repeated beliefs that sit beneath your thoughts and shape the lens through which you see everything. To assume something is not merely to wish for it or to entertain it casually in your mind. It is to accept it as already true. It is to make it so real in your inner world that it begins to alter your behavior, your speech, your feelings, and your choices. You act from the place of its truth, not toward it. That is the difference between desiring something and assuming it. Desire often emphasizes the absence. It says, I want this, and in doing so declares, I don't yet have it. Assumption does the opposite. It says, it is mine, and begins to live accordingly. That is the secret. That is the point where imagination becomes creation. When you assume you are wealthy, you stop worrying about money. When you assume you are loved, you stop chasing approval. When you assume you are healthy, your body begins to respond in kind. You don't force these changes, you flow into them because your mind has already accepted a new identity. And because your mind is the seedbed of reality, that identity must bear fruit in the world around you. This is why some people seem to attract opportunities effortlessly. It is not because they are luckier, smarter, or more qualified. It is because they assume they belong in those places of success. They walk with a certainty that doesn't come from what they see, it comes from what they believe. Their assumption becomes their atmosphere. It influences the tone of their voice, the energy of their presence, the clarity of their decision. People around them feel that certainty, and the world opens its doors accordingly. The same principle applies no matter the circumstance. Whether you're trying to improve your finances, mend a relationship, heal your body, or find your purpose, the beginning is not in what you do, but in what you assume. Every action is born from a state of mind. If you act from a place of desperation, your efforts will carry that energy. If you act from a place of fulfillment, even small steps will multiply with ease. The soil matters more than the seed. The state from which you act matters more than the act itself. You cannot trick assumption. You cannot simply recite affirmations while secretly doubting their truth. The universe is not fooled by words. It responds to the feeling behind them. To truly assume something, you must feel it. You must see yourself living it, breathing it, embodying it in your mind until it feels more real than your current surroundings. It is not delusion, it is creation. It is the blueprint of manifestation. When the inner world is vividly shaped, the outer world must mirror it. This is not philosophy, this is spiritual law. Children understand this better than adults. A child pretending to be a superhero does not merely wish he were one, he is one. In his mind, he flies, he rescues, he saves the day. He does not need evidence, his assumption is enough. That is the purity of imagination, that is the power of acting as if. Somewhere along the way, we were taught to abandon that power. We were told to be realistic, to wait for facts, to accept limitation as wisdom. But reality is not fixed. It is flexible, shaped daily by the assumptions we hold and the states we inhabit. If you could trace every breakthrough in your life back to its source, you would find a moment where something within you shifted. A belief changed. A new assumption took root. Perhaps it happened quietly, like a whisper of knowing. Perhaps it came suddenly, like a light turning on. But once you assumed a different truth, your actions began to match it and life responded. You didn't need permission. You didn't need perfect timing. You needed only to believe differently. The person who assumes success becomes a success long before anyone else began to bend. The person who assumes love radiates it before it arrives. The person who assumes healing walks in peace even while symptoms linger. Assumption is not the end result. It is the starting place. When you begin with the end in mind, life begins to fill in the blanks. What was once a hope becomes a pattern. What was once a vision becomes a path. Most people ask, what should I do? But the better question is, who must I assume myself to be? Because when you change that identity in your mind, the doing flows naturally. You stop trying to earn your future and start living it now. That is the mystery. You don't become your future, you return to it. You remember who you really are. You step back into the version of you that was always waiting to be realized. To assume is to claim. It is to rest in the knowing that what you seek is already yours. You no longer reach outward, you draw inward. You no longer chase, you align. And once aligned, you attract not through force, but through faith. Life does not give you what you plead for, it gives you what you prepare for. An assumption is preparation in its highest form. It is spiritual certainty before physical proof. It is the language of the soul that says, I am, not I will be. And when you speak in that language, all of creation listens. There is a sacred doorway within you that few have been taught to walk through, though it has been open all along. It is the doorway of feeling, pure, vivid, undeniable emotion. This is not the fleeting surface emotion of reacting to what is happening around you. This is the deep, inner current of feeling that precedes the event, that actually causes it to take form. What the world sees as the result, this inner feeling knows as the origin. Feeling is the secret force that unlocks the unseen and makes it real. Without it, thoughts remain dormant, words fall flat, actions are mechanical. But when infused with feeling, people are so often trained to dismiss feeling. Becomes a seed that grows into form, they are told. Be practical, but it is not reason that moves mountains. It is belief. It is not logic that changes lives. It is conviction. The universe does not respond to cold, mechanical repetition. It responds to warmth, to passion, to the emotional certainty that something is already true. To feel something as real before it becomes visible is the highest form of faith. It is the energy that bridges the gap between the imagined and the experience. Everything you have ever manifested, whether wanted or unwanted, has arrived in your life by the way you felt about yourself, about others, about life. The deeper, more consistent the feeling, the faster it came. If you felt unworthy, unlovable, or abandoned, you saw the world mirror those beliefs back to you, often in painful ways. And if you ever tasted moments of joy, breakthrough, sudden peace, or success, they too were reflections of a moment, sometimes fleeting, where you allowed yourself to feel as if it were already yours. The feeling came first. It always does. When you understand this, you no longer wait for life to give you a reason to feel good. You give yourself the permission to feel good now. You begin to understand that to feel wealthy is more powerful than any dollar in your hand. To feel loved is more transformative than hearing the words. To feel whole is more healing than any remedy the world could offer. And when those feelings become your dwelling place, not just a fleeting visit, they become magnets. What you feel consistently, you draw near. That is the law. It is not enough to visualize something once and forget it. The image must be felt. It must move you, shape you, enter your body like a living experience. If you were to close your eyes and imagine walking into the life of your dreams, not observing it from afar, but actually living in it, you would notice something shift inside you. Your shoulders would relax. Your breath would deepen. Your heart would beat differently. Why? Because your nervous system doesn't distinguish between the vividly imagined and the physically real. If you feel it, your body registers it. And if your body registers it, your actions change. If your actions change, your reality must follow. Feeling creates momentum. It takes a single idea and breathes life into it. A person who merely thinks of their dream may dabble here and there, take a few steps, and then give up when obstacles appear. But a person who feels their dream with certainty walks with a different energy. They don't seek validation, they carry it. They don't ask, is this possible? They declare, this is mine. And that feeling draws to them the people, places, and opportunities that match it. They become a match for what they desire, not by force, but by feeling. This is not wishful thinking. This is spiritual alignment. When you step into the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you activate the very power that created the universe. You no longer need to know how the pieces will come together. You trust that they will, because you already feel what it's like to have them. That's the paradox the mind resists, to feel something before seeing it. But that is the key. You are not reacting to the world, you are creating it. Imagine waking up tomorrow and choosing to feel as though your deepest desire was already fulfilled. What would you wear? How would you carry yourself? What would you say? How would you treat others? You would not wait for the evidence. You would let the feeling guide the evidence to you. That is not denial, it is divine design. That is not escapism, it is embodiment. And embodiment is where creation takes place. Do not be discouraged by the time it takes. Feeling is not a race, it is a practice, a return. Every time you fall into doubt, gently return to the feeling. Every time fear whispers, replace it with the emotion of the life you choose to live. Your feelings are not accidents, they are instructions. They are signposts pointing you toward your creation. And if you ignore them, you may follow the path of effort and confusion. But if you honor them, there will always be moments when your outer world looks opposite to your inner vision. That is the test. That is the moment to dig deeper, to feel stronger, to remain in the state of the wish fulfilled. Because it is in those moments that reality begins to bend. The pressure before the breakthrough is not a sign that it isn't working. It is proof that something unseen is being rearranged. Hold the feeling. Trust it more than what your eyes can see. Many will say, I'll believe it when I see you. But the truth has always been, you'll see it when you believe it and feel it. Feel as if you are already there. Dwell in that emotional atmosphere as long and as often as you can. Make it your default setting. Let your body grow familiar with a feeling of fulfillment, not lack. And when that feeling becomes natural to you, reality will conform. Do not underestimate the quiet power of feeling. It does not shout, it does not beg, it does not struggle, it simply is. And because it is, it calls forth everything that matches its frequency. Feeling is not a luxury of the fortunate, it is the tool of the awakened. It is your signal to life, your declaration to the unseen, your conversation with the divine. When you feel it, you are it. And when you are it, nothing can keep it from you. The world you see around you, the people you meet, the circumstances you face, the patterns you live through again and again, is not happening to you randomly. It is happening through you. It is the projection of your inner state, the invisible energy you carry, the thoughts you habitually entertain, and the assumptions you have allowed to become permanent residents in your consciousness. The outer world is not an independent force. It is a mirror. And like any mirror, it has no power of its own. It only reflects what stands before it. The moment you begin to change what you hold within, the reflection has no choice but to change as well. But this is the great misunderstanding that keeps people locked in cycles of repetition. They believe they must fix the world first in order to feel better. They try to rearrange the pieces outside themselves, changing jobs, changing cities, changing relationships, hoping that this time the right combination will bring them peace or fulfillment. But they fail to recognize that until their inner world shifts, the new job will feel like the old one, the new relationship will carry the same wounds, and the new opportunity will eventually close, just like the last. Why? Because the outer world does not lead, it follows. And what it follows is your inner state. You cannot escape your inner atmosphere. Wherever you go, there it is. You bring it with you into conversations, decisions, habits, and expectations. It speaks through your posture. It whispers through your tone of voice. It colors the way you interpret the actions of others, and most of all, it silently tells life what to give you next. If your inner state is dominated by fear, even your victories will feel fragile. If it is saturated with gratitude, even simple moments will feel profound. The quality of your life does not come from what you have. It comes from who you are being internally. To change your world, you must begin not with action, but with attention. Attention is the builder of consciousness. Where your attention goes, energy flows. If your attention is constantly placed on what's missing, what's broken, what's painful, you train your inner state to reflect lack. And in turn, the world mirrors that state with more reasons to feel empty. But if you shift your attention to what is already good, already working, already alive with potential, your inner state begins to change, and soon the world must echo that change back to you. This is not positivity, it is alignment. Think of your inner state like a frequency. Every state, joy, peace, resentment, lack, abundance, has its own vibration. The state you occupy most often becomes your broadcast signal. And life, like a faithful receiver, tunes into that signal and sends back corresponding experiences. You may not see the connection immediately. There is often a delay, just like a seed needs time to grow before it becomes visible. But make no mistake, what you plant inside will grow outside. It cannot be otherwise. When you begin to truly accept this, everything changes. You no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances. You see yourself as the architect. You take responsibility, not in a burdensome way, but in a liberating one. You stop waiting for someone to fix your life. You realize you have the tools already. The blueprint is your imagination. The material is your belief. The builder is your attention, and the energy that moves it all is your inner state. This is the real work. not managing conditions, but mastering consciousness. Let this truth settle deep. Nothing can permanently change in your life until your inner state changes. You might win the lottery, but if you carry the inner state of lack, you'll find a way to lose it. You might fall in love, but if your inner state is still filled with fear of abandonment, you will sabotage or strain the connection. You might get the promotion, but if your inner state is one of self-doubt, you'll feel like an imposter, never fully receiving the reward. The outer form can only give what the inner content is prepared to receive. That is why the greatest investment you can make is not in things, but in states. Practice dwelling in the state of confidence, and the world will begin to respect back to you. Abide in the state of worthiness, and opportunities will start to appear where none existed before. Live in the state of peace, and even chaos around you will begin to lose its grip. This is not magic, it is cause and effect. It is the law of reflection. There is no need to chase. The more you chase, the more you confirm you do not have. And what you confirm within, you reinforce without. That is the cruel loop many are stuck in, desiring something deeply but reinforcing its absence by constantly reacting to what is missing. To break that loop, you must begin to live from the place of I already am, not one day I will be. This requires practice. This requires imagination. It requires a decision to no longer use the outer world as a scorecard. Because once you understand that the outer world is old news, just a reflection of past inner states, you begin to withdraw your power from it. You begin to give power back to the present moment, to your current inner state, knowing it is the only true cause. No one else controls your inner state unless you hand them that power. No circumstance can define it unless you let it. That is the sovereignty you possess. You can cultivate love in a place of rejection. You can generate abundance while your bank account still shows lack. You can build a deep peace while storms rage around you. Because none of these feelings require permission from the world. They require only that you claim them, dwell in them, live from them. And once you do, the mirror shifts. There may be resistance at first. The outer world may try to pull you back into its appearance. But that's all it is, appearance, not truth, not power. When you persist in your new inner state, even when the mirror shows the old reflection, you are rewriting the image. And when that new image is fully formed within, the outer world will blink and it will match. This is the mystery of faith, the power of persistence, the essence of transformation. You are not at the mercy of life. Life is at the mercy of your state. Choose wisely what you dwell in. Choose deliberately what you believe about yourself, your worth, your future. Because every time you choose a new state, the world begins quietly, gradually, but inevitably to reorganize itself around you. Imagination is not just a retreat for dreamers or a playground for the young. It is the origin of every reality you have ever lived, everything you have ever achieved, every experience you have known. Every shift in your life began first in the unseen world of imagination. Before the chair was carved, someone imagined it. Before the home was built, someone saw it clearly in their mind. Before you fell in love, before you succeeded at anything, it was felt and seen inwardly first, even if unconsciously. Imagination is the true workshop of creation. It is not fantasy, it is the birthplace of form. You may have been taught to downplay imagination, to treat it as secondary to logic and action. But imagination precedes both. It is the mold into which life is poured. Whatever image you hold vividly and consistently, especially when accompanied by feeling, begins to take root in your subconscious mind. And the subconscious, once impressed, goes to work. It does not judge, It does not question, it simply expresses. It takes the image, the idea, the assumption you give it, and moves your body, your decisions, your encounters, and your circumstances to bring it to life. It is not your job to figure out how this happens. Your job is to imagine well. But to imagine well does not mean to wish aimlessly or daydream passively. It means to enter into a scene with such intensity that it becomes more real to you than the outer world. It means to live inside the image of your fulfilled desire as though it were already your reality. It means you see yourself not as someone trying to get there, but as someone who already is. You imagine with conviction. You dwell in it until it begins to feel familiar. And once it feels familiar, it starts to become your identity. And once it becomes your identity, life must match it. Imagination is not about escape, it is about alignment. You are not running from what is, you are stepping into what already exists within you, waiting to be expressed. That vision you carry, that longing in your heart, it is not placed there to taunt you. It is your permission, it is your invitation, it is the seed. And imagination is the light and water that causes it to grow. Every time you revisit that inner scene, you are reinforcing it. You are telling your subconscious, this is who I am, this is what is real for me. And slowly, the old image fades, and the new one takes hold. When you imagine something, you do not need the world's agreement. You do not need external confirmation. Your task is not to convince others, it is to convince yourself. And imagination is the most powerful tool to do just that. Because when you see it over and over again, when you feel it, speak from it, act from it, your inner world begins to reflect that vision, and your outer world must eventually follow. It is not a matter of if, only when. That is the certainty of the law. You may say, but my current reality looks nothing like what I'm imagining. That does not matter. The outer world is always a delayed reflection. What you see now is the result of past thoughts, past states, past imaginings. It is old news. Do not let the old reflection stop you from imagining something new. If you continue to react to what is, you will recreate more of it. But if you respond with imagination, if you dare to live inwardly in a state of the wish fulfilled, you interrupt the cycle. You plant a new seed. You begin a new creation. There is a sacredness to the act of imagining. When done with faith and persistence, it becomes a holy act. It becomes communion with the infinite. You are speaking directly to your deeper mind, saying, this is what I choose. You are not begging, you are not pleading, you are creating. You are stepping into the divine role of the artist of your life. And the more often you return to that inner workshop, the more detailed, vivid, and alive your creation becomes. Many people imagine unconsciously. They dwell on what they fear, what they resent, what they believe they cannot have. And their lives reflect that internal rehearsal of failure, of disappointment, of lack. But once you become aware of the power of imagination, you take back the pen. You begin to write a new story, not just with words, but with pictures, feelings, and inner experiences. And over time, that inner script becomes the one the world follows. The mind cannot hold two conflicting images with equal power for long. One will eventually dominate. If you constantly revisit the image of defeat, of being overlooked or unworthy, that will shape your experience. But if you replace it with the image of strength, clarity, fulfillment, held with feeling and focus, it will eventually override the old story. That is the power you hold, not through struggle, but through vision. The most powerful changes begin in silence, in stillness, behind closed eyes. When the world is loud, when circumstances are pressing in, that is when imagination becomes your sanctuary. You close your eyes, take a breath, and step into the world as you desire it to be. You do not wait for it to happen. You become it in the unseen. And because the world responds to the vibration of who you are being, the outer must bow to the inner. It is law. It is the unseen choreography that brings events, people, and moments into alignment. Even a few minutes of pure, undistracted, emotionally charged imagination is more powerful than hours of mindless action. Because you are not moving from force, you are moving from certainty. You do not beg the world to change, you simply change within and watch the world adjust. You begin to act as one who already has, because inwardly you have already claimed it. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, choose differently, not to fake it, but because your inner image no longer matches your old behavior. This is not arrogance, it is truth in action. The world may not understand your calm, your peace, your confidence when nothing has yet happened, but you will know, because it has happened within. The shift has already occurred, and the outer world is simply catching up. You do not chase, you do not prove, you dwell, you rest, you imagine, and therefore you create. Gratitude is not meant to be a reaction, it is meant to be a way of being. The world has taught us that we should give thanks after we receive, that we should celebrate only when something arrives, that appreciation is a response to external blessing. But that understanding is backward. Gratitude is not the result of manifestation, it is the catalyst. When you give thanks before something shows up, you are not pretending. You are aligning, you are declaring to the universe that your desire is not a hope, not a wish, but a present reality within you. You are living in the feeling of it. And that feeling sends a signal far stronger than any words ever could. To be grateful for something you do not yet see is to plant the seed of that very thing. You are no longer asking, no longer doubting, no longer waiting. You are claiming. You are showing faith, not through struggle or repetition, but through calm certainty. Gratitude, when practiced in this way, becomes an act of spiritual knowing. You are saying, this is already mine. I see it. I feel it. I am thankful for it. And in doing so, you speak in the language of creation. When you close your eyes and enter the state of the wish fulfilled, gratitude must naturally follow. Because if you were already living your desire, how else would you feel? You would be thankful. You would walk with lightness. You would speak from joy. You would breathe more freely. That is the power of gratitude before manifestation. It aligns your inner world with the outcome you wish to see. It tells your subconscious, this is who I am now. And the subconscious, always obedient, begins to shape your reality to match that state. People often get stuck in cycles of longing. They spend so much time focusing on what they don't have that they reinforce its absence. They wake up thinking about the lack. They go to sleep repeating the story of delay. Their energy is wrapped in the belief that something is missing. But gratitude shifts all of that. Gratitude assumes completion. It assumes fulfillment. It assumes that there is something to be thankful for now, and that assumption is what changes the frequency of your life. When you begin to give thanks for what you desire as if it were already here, you enter into harmony with that version of yourself who already has it. And harmony always creates attraction. You are no longer vibrating with need, you are vibrating with sufficiency. The energy of please let it happen is heavy. It repels. But the energy of thank you, it is done, is magnetic. It draws things in with ease. Chosen ones, prepare yourself before it's too late. You are not here by accident. You were not born to blend in, to move aimlessly through the tide of existence, or to echo the noise of the world around you. Deep within you, there has always been a knowing, quiet, persistent, and sacred. You have been chosen, not by society, not by man, but by something far greater, something eternal, something divine. And yet, even the chosen must prepare. Even the called must awaken. Time, though it may seem endless, does not wait for hesitation. The clock of your transformation is ticking, and the door that leads to your destiny does not remain open forever. What you see in front of you is not the whole picture. This world is a mirror, reflecting not what you wish, but what you truly believe. If there is chaos around you, it began within you. If you feel delay, it is not life punishing you, it is life waiting for you, waiting for your inner world to rise to the level of the promise already planted within your spirit. But you must water that seed. You must tend to it with intention, and you must do it now. Because there comes a moment when silence is not stillness, but slumber. And the chosen must not sleep while the storm brews. Your imagination is your compass. Your inner speech is your command. What you rehearse inwardly, you are destined to live outwardly. And if you walk around entertaining images of defeat, betrayal, fear, or limitation, you are not only delaying your ascension, you are denying it. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot say you are chosen while entertaining thoughts that you are cursed. You cannot claim divine purpose while identifying with the identity the world has projected onto you. To be chosen is to walk a narrow road, a path where belief precedes sight, and where the unseen becomes more real than the visible. There is a price for forgetting who you are, a spiritual cost that shows up as emptiness, confusion, stagnation. The chosen ones cannot afford distraction. You cannot afford to keep compromising with a world that has no idea who you really are. You are sent here to create, not conform. You are sent here to manifest, not mimic. And every second you spend trying to fit in is a second stolen from the reality that you are meant to shape with your own thoughts. There is a version of you already living in the fullness of that calling, already walking in peace, already manifesting abundance, already surrounded by the right people in the right place doing the right thing. But that version is not waiting on the stars to align. That version is waiting on your alignment, your readiness, your choice to believe not with your mouth, but with your imagination, not with borrowed hope, but with bold faith. You must stop expecting your outer life to change while your inner language remains the same. You cannot continue rehearsing stories of pain and expect a life of purpose. The chosen ones are not victims of memory, they are authors of meaning. You must begin to rewrite the script of your life from the inside out. You must see yourself as whole, even when others treat you as broken. You must speak to yourself as if you are already there, already transformed, already living what you used to only dream about. The danger is not in being overlooked by others. The real danger is overlooking yourself, ignoring the whisper that says, it's time, pushing aside the signs, the nudges, the divine promptings that are trying to awaken you before it's too late. You may not get this moment again. The alignment you feel now may not come again in the same way. Every delay, every betrayal, every hardship was not to destroy you, but to prepare you. But preparation is not passive. You must act, not in haste, but in faith, not by chasing, but by claiming. This is the time to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to dwell in the state of what you desire as if it were already yours, not just once, but continuously. Not just when you're inspired, but especially when you're weary. The chosen ones don't manifest by wishing. They manifest by knowing. They create not from force, but from alignment. And alignment is not a ritual. It is a state of being. You must choose it daily. You must return to it hourly. You must live from it, even when everything around you contradicts it. If you wait for the world to give you a sign, you will remain in bondage to its silence. But when you give yourself the sign, when you declare that now is the time, that this is your moment, that you are done sleeping on your power, then the world begins to rearrange itself around your belief. People shift, circumstances move, opportunities appear, not because they were never there, but because you were finally ready to see them. You are not just here to survive, you are here to shift reality, to bend the world through the power of your assumption, to become a living expression of divine truth. But none of this happens if you don't prepare. If you don't silence the noise, discipline your imagination, and step boldly into the unseen with the certainty of a soul who knows they were chosen long before they arrived here. So I ask you, what are you waiting for? The time is not later, the time is now. And you are not just invited, you are called, chosen, sent. But if you do not prepare, you will miss the door disguised as delay. You will miss the opportunity hidden in the opposition. Prepare yourself, not out of fear, but out of reverence, out of honor for the destiny that is not promised to everyone, but reserved for those who dare to believe it's already theirs. You cannot manifest a new life from your old state of being. The chosen must align their inner world with the future they desire. That means embodying peace, abundance, and purpose, even before any evidence shows up. Delay is a sign that you're not yet ready internally. Life doesn't delay what you're truly ready for. If you're experiencing delay, it's a signal to prepare within, to become the version of yourself who can sustain what you're asking for. Faith is assumption lived out daily. Being chosen isn't about waiting for miracles. It's about walking in assumption as if the miracle already happened. When you live each moment from the end result, the world has no choice but to conform. Every experience you're having right now is a mirror, not a punishment, not a reward, a mirror reflecting the sum total of your dominant assumptions. These assumptions, though often subtle and unconscious, are the builders of the world you walk through. You see, the external world is not separate from you. It is not something out there reacting to chance or randomness. It is responding to you. It bends to your assumption. It takes the shape of what you truly believe to be true, not what you hope, not what you say when you're feeling motivated, but what you assume in the silence when no one is watching. If deep down you assume that people will overlook you, life will fulfill that belief. If you assume that success is for others and not for you, it will become your truth. If you assume that you are always rejected, always betrayed, always misunderstood, then that assumption hardens into fact. The chosen ones are not immune to this law. If anything, it is more intense for them because they carry more spiritual weight. Their thoughts echo louder. Their assumptions manifest faster. Their mental images are not casual, they are creative forces in motion. So the first question the chosen one must ask is not what do I want, but what am I assuming? Because what you assume is what you live. The world is not happening to you, it is happening through you. It is following the blueprint you carry in your imagination. The way you see yourself, the way you speak to yourself, the way you silently define who you are and what you deserve. This is the script the world is acting out. And when you realize this, everything changes. You stop blaming people. You stop waiting for circumstances to shift. You stop needing permission from others to rise. Because you understand that you are the projector, not the screen. You are the cause, not the effect. Look closely at the patterns of your life. Look at the relationships that keep repeating themselves. Look at the financial ceilings you can't seem to break. Look at the places where you feel stuck. They are not random. They are manifestations of an internal state. Your relationships, your finances, your health, your opportunities, each one is a faithful servant of the assumptions you hold. And until you change the assumptions, the patterns will stay. You can change your job, your city, your friends, but if the assumptions are the same, the outcome will be the same, only dressed in new clothing. This is the law that governs the lives of the chosen. It is not punishment. It is precision. Life is not responding to your cries, it is responding to your certainty. The more you assume your chosen status, the more the world rearranges itself to confirm that truth. But if you carry unworthiness, fear, or doubt in your core, then the world, by law, must reflect it back to you. This is not cruel, it is merciful, because it means you are not bound by your past, you are only bound by your present state of mind. Shift your assumption, and you shift your world. So many people walk around affirming what they want while assuming the opposite. They say, I'm wealthy, but deep down they feel like a beggar. They say, I'm loved, but their inner world is shaped by abandonment. They say, I trust God, but they live in fear, and then they wonder why things don't change. It's because the words are hollow if the assumptions are poisoned. You cannot affirm abundance while assuming lack. You cannot attract love while assuming loneliness. You cannot walk as the chosen while assuming you are forgotten. The two are incompatible. The outer world is not listening to your words. It is responding to your vibration, your frequency, your assumption. You have to live from the state you desire, not toward it. That's the key. The moment you live from it, you no longer chase it. And what you no longer chase begins to chase you. It sounds simple, but it's the most profound shift a person can make. To stop saying, one day I will be, and start assuming I already am. This is not fantasy, this is faith. Faith is not blind belief. Faith is the conviction that what you do not yet see is more real than what your eyes can capture. It is knowing that your inner world is more powerful than any external fact. And when you hold to that inner world long enough, the outer world begins to echo it. Not instantly, but inevitably. You are the author of your experience, not in theory, but in truth. And the pen you write with is assumption. Every day, you're writing the story of your life by what you accept as true. And this writing is not optional. Whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, you are always writing. Every time you say, this always happens to me, you are writing. Every time you think, I'm not good enough, you are right. Every time you feel, people always take advantage of me, you are writing. And the universe is publishing it, printing it, acting it out in the theater of your life. But you can change the script. You can assume something new. You can dare to believe that your destiny is not defined by your trauma, your mistakes, or your lineage, but by your divine calling. You can assume that favor surrounds you, that the right people are drawn to you, that the things that once eluded you are now magnetized to your presence. And if you assume it long enough, the world will have to obey, because it is law. And law does not bend to emotion, it bends to alignment. You are chosen. But even chosen ones must align. Even those called by destiny must prepare their inner world, because the treasure meant for you cannot enter a state of disbelief. It cannot land in soil filled with thorns of doubt. You have to become a match to the blessing. And you become a match not by effort, but by assumption, by knowing right now that everything you need is already yours in the unseen, by dwelling in that awareness, not occasionally, but continuously. The ones who change their lives are not the ones who try the hardest. They are the ones who assume the deepest. They are the ones who persist in the unseen long before anything shows up. They are the ones who wake up each day and choose to believe in what the world calls foolish. They are the ones who close their eyes and see what no one else can see. And they are the ones who open their eyes to find that the world has finally caught up. Imagination is not a luxury of the dreamer, it is the tool of the creator. It is not merely a pastime of the mind, it is the very foundation upon which your life is built. Everything that exists around you began in the unseen, in thought, in vision, in a flicker of inner awareness before it took form. And yet so many live as though imagination is a childish thing, as if it is to be outgrown or suppressed. But the truth is, Nothing of substance can be created without it. For those who are chosen, imagination is not optional. It is the source of their power, the evidence of their calling, and the channel through which divine design is carried into the physical realm. When you close your eyes and see a different world, one that defies your present reality, you are not daydreaming, you are beginning. You are entering the only place where real change can occur. The scene is already finished. It is the past crystallized into form. If you want to change your life, you must step away from the illusion of what is and enter the truth of what can be. The world may call it fantasy, but the chosen ones know better. They understand that the invisible is more powerful than the visible, that the future is not waiting somewhere far away. It's forming right now in the womb of your imagination. Every time you visualize yourself healed, free, abundant, restored, you are not escaping reality, you are shaping it. You are laying down a new track for your life to run on. You are rewriting the script, rearranging the set, recasting the roles. But it requires more than a fleeting moment of positive thinking. It requires immersion. You must feel it so deeply that the imagined becomes more convincing than the current. You must live from the image as if it were already so, because in truth it is. The moment you see it in the inner world, it already exists. It only awaits your full embodiment to break into the outer world. Most people use imagination passively, allowing their minds to be shaped by fear, worry, doubt, and trauma. They rehearse the worst outcomes, they replay the pain, they prepare for failure. And the imagination, being a faithful servant, obeys. It multiplies what it is given. But the chosen ones must become masters of their inner world. They must discipline their imagination to dwell only in what they desire, not in that discipline is the true preparation, not in physical effort, not in endless striving, but in inward clarity, to hold the vision when everything around you contradicts it. That is the sign of the awakened soul. You must dare to believe that what you see within is more real than what you see without, that your imagined success is not a lie but a seed, that your vision of peace, even while chaos swirls around you, is not delusion but prophecy. The world does not change when the external circumstances shift. It changes when the imagination becomes dominant. When you no longer ask, how will it happen, but declare, it already has. That is the secret. Not to look for proof, but to be the proof. Not to react to the visible, but to radiate from the invisible. Because when the inner picture becomes your home, the outer world must bend to accommodate it. This is not about pretending. It is about dwelling. It is not about wishing. It is about knowing. The chosen ones don't visualize their desires out of desperation. They do so out of alignment. They understand that the image is the blueprint, the pattern, from which the form will emerge. And they return to that image again and again, not because they are unsure, but because they are aligning deeper and deeper with its reality. They feel it, they hear its sounds, they move in it as though it were the only truth. And in doing so, they call forth the thing that is already theirs, in the unseen. Imagination is not just a tool, it is a place, a state, a dimension where you can go at any moment, no matter your surroundings. The prison cell cannot keep you out. The hospital bed cannot block the way. The debt, the heartbreak, the confusion, none of it can deny you access. You can always enter. And once inside, you can always choose. You can choose to see yourself whole. You can choose to see yourself free. You can choose to see the door opening, the person calling, the account filled, the body healed, the storm ending, and when you do, something begins to shift. Not in the outer world first, but in you. And that shift is the beginning of the miracle. You must stop asking permission to imagine your highest life. Stop waiting for someone to validate your dream. The very fact that you can see it is your confirmation. You don't need credentials to claim what God has already placed in your spirit. The vision is the invitation, the feeling is the proof, the image is the access point. And your job is not to figure it out, but to live from it, to return to it so consistently that the line between the imagined and the real disappears entirely. That is where manifestation begins. Not in labor, but in vision. Not in movement, but in stillness. Not in panic, but in presence. The world you long for is already finished in spirit, but you must become pregnant with that image. Carry it, nurture it, speak to it, refuse to let it die, no matter how barren the outer land may look. Because what you see around you is only a reflection of past thoughts, but what you see within you, that is the future. And it can come quickly, suddenly, unexpectedly. Once your inner world becomes more stable than your outer one. So do not be distracted by what is. Be devoted to what can be. Let the imagination become your dwelling place. Let it be your secret sanctuary. When the world says no, go there. When fear whispers, return there. When doubt knocks, hide there. And from that place declare that what you desire is already yours. Not someday, not if it all works out, but now. Because imagination is not a wish, it is a weapon, a holy fire, a divine design system through which the invisible becomes visible and the impossible becomes normal. This is the gift the chosen ones carry. This is the path they walk, not by force, not by striving, but by vision, clear, persistent, and fearless. They are not waiting for the world to change. They are changing the world by what they dare to see in the silence. And when that vision becomes more than a picture, when it becomes a place you live from, speak from, rise from, the world will bow. It will adjust. It will transform. Not because it decided to bless you, but because you finally decided to imagine without limits. You cannot manifest a new life from the old version of yourself. You cannot walk into a future of abundance while remaining emotionally anchored in lack. You cannot step into love while living in fear. The chosen ones must understand this truth. Alignment always comes before manifestation. The life you're praying for, the vision you carry in your heart, the promises whispered in your spirit, these things are not withheld from you. They are waiting for you to align. They are waiting for you to become the person who belongs in that reality. Because every state of being has a frequency. And if you are not in harmony with it, you cannot enter it. Not because it is locked away, but because you cannot recognize it from where you stand. There are people right now who are standing at the edge of their breakthrough, yet still bound by an old state of mind. They think the answer is more effort, more strategy, more control. But the real work is inward. It's the transformation of identity. You must stop trying to receive a blessing while still believing you are the person who has no business receiving it. You cannot ask for elevation while nurturing beliefs of unworthiness. Life cannot contradict your dominant inner state. It doesn't matter how desperately you want something. If you are not aligned with it inwardly, it cannot become your reality. The truth is, the world does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are. And what you are is determined not by your appearance, your words, or your reputation, but by your state of consciousness. Who are you being when no one is watching? What energy do you carry into every moment? Are you constantly seeking proof that you're not enough? Or are you walking with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are chosen, who knows their time is not only coming, but is already here? To align with what you desire means to shift into the emotional, mental, and spiritual posture that reflects that desire already fulfilled. It means no longer hoping, but knowing, no longer reaching, but resting, no longer trying to impress, but simply expressing the fullness of your divine identity. It is about becoming the match, And to become the match, you must first release the version of yourself that is addicted to, the one who is attached to being the underdog, the one who constantly tells stories of betrayal and lack. Those stories may be true, but they are not the truth. They are fragments of your past, and they have no place in the world you're being called into. There is a version of you that already lives in complete alignment. That version does not beg. That version does not compare. That version does not shrink in the face of fear or hesitate when opportunity appears. That version already exists, and it is waiting for you to remember it. It is waiting for you to shed the emotional weight of disappointment, to let go of the self-image formed by trauma, and to rise into the identity that knows no limitation. This is not pretending, this is returning. Returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. Alignment is not a concept, it's a state, a felt experience. You know when you're in it. You feel ease, you feel clarity, you feel peace even before the evidence appears. And that peace is not an accident. It is the signal that you have entered the state where manifestation becomes natural. You do not need to force the door open when you are aligned with the room inside. It opens on its own. But when you are not aligned, life becomes a struggle. Opportunities slip through your fingers. The things you chase move further away. Not because you're cursed, but because you're out of sync. To realign, you must return to the center of your being. You must ask yourself, what am I holding on to that doesn't belong to the future I desire? Is it resentment? Is it fear? Is it guilt? Is it the belief that you must always work twice as hard just to be seen? The chosen ones cannot afford to carry emotional baggage into sacred territory. You must travel light. You must leave behind the old story so the new chapter can begin. Alignment is a choice, not a feeling, not a lucky break, a choice. And it's a choice you must make again and again until your entire being settles into it. Many people ask why their prayers seem unanswered, why their dreams remain distant, why the vision never comes to life. The reason is simple: they are out of alignment. They speak of faith but live in fear. They declare abundance but embody scarcity. They talk of destiny while doubting every step. The universe does not respond to your words, it responds to your state. The moment your state shifts, your life must shift. It is law, it is not personal, it is not emotional. It is simply how this reality works. And once you understand that, you stop wasting time fighting the world and you start refining yourself. This is the work of the chosen ones, the hidden work, the quiet work, the work done in thought, in emotion, in imagination. It may not be visible to others, but it is the most powerful work you will ever do. Because when your inner world becomes aligned with your desire, the outer world cannot resist it. It must comply. It must obey. It must reflect. And that is when things start moving fast. Not because you finally got lucky, but because you finally got aligned. Alignment is not perfection, it is resonance. It is authenticity. It is the place where you stop chasing and start attracting, where you stop striving and start allowing, where you stop doubting and start knowing. The chosen are not perfect. They are aligned. They do not wait for conditions to change. They become the change. They carry the energy of the future they believe in. And by doing so, they collapse time. They walk into rooms already prepared for them. They step into blessings that seemed impossible. Not because they forced anything, but because they became a living match for what was already theirs. This is your invitation, not to try harder, but to tune deeper, not to hustle more, but to align more fully. Everything you desire already exists in a state of readiness. But the question is, do you? Are you emotionally available for the miracle you keep praying for? Are you mentally ready for the success you keep imagining? Are you spiritually prepared for the doors you want opened? Because when you are, life will no longer delay. Life is never waiting on the blessing, It's always waiting on your alignment. And the moment you enter the state where it already is, it will be. There is a misunderstanding many carry, the belief that delay means denial. That when something doesn't arrive on their schedule, it must be a sign they're forgotten, ignored, or not worthy. But delay is not rejection. It is a mirror. It is an invitation to look within. It is life gently and sometimes painfully signaling that something inside is not yet ready to hold what you're asking for. The delay is never about the thing you want. It is about the version of you who will receive it. And if that version has not yet emerged, life will wait, not to punish you, but to protect the very thing you long to receive. You may cry out, plead, fast, speak affirmations, but if deep inside you still carry fear, doubt, or resistance, life will respond to that vibration. Because this world does not operate on desperation, it responds only to alignment. You may want the door to open, but if stepping through that door would destroy you, delay is mercy. If receiving the blessing without the capacity to sustain it would break you, delay is grace. You must begin to see every delay not as abandonment, but as divine instruction. Life is showing you the gap between who you are now and who you must become. Look closely at your delays. They are not random. They are the symptoms of an inner disconnect. Perhaps you're asking for abundance, but still identify with struggle. Perhaps you want love, but harbor self-loathing. Perhaps you pray for peace, but carry chaos within. These contradictions form a spiritual block, not from the outside world, but from your own energy. What you want cannot come until your state of being is a match for it. And if it hasn't come, that means there is still something inside asking to be healed, restructured, or released. The chosen ones are not immune to this principle. In fact, it applies to them more strictly, because what they carry is sacred, and sacred things cannot be placed into unready hands. You are not delayed because you're less than. You are delayed because your calling is more than. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. The vision that has been placed in your heart is not a tease. It is a prophecy. But prophecy demands preparation. The soil must be broken before the seed takes root. The seed must die before it becomes a tree, and you too must be transformed before the promise arrives. So what is delay teaching you? It's teaching you to examine your inner world, to become aware of the thoughts you think in secret, the beliefs you never speak aloud, the feelings you bury deep. It's asking you, do you truly believe you are enough? Do you truly see yourself as worthy of the life you say you want? Are you ready to carry that success, that visibility, that influence, without falling back into fear or self-sabotage? Delay exposes these blind spots, not to shame you, but to free you. Because once you address them, your frequency changes. And once your frequency changes, the world must respond. You must stop treating delay as a curse. You must stop growing bitter in the waiting, because what you call delay, the divine calls development. The longer the preparation, the greater the impact. Some things take time because they are meant to last, because they are meant to shake generations, because they are not just for you, but for those who will be touched by the life you live. And if the foundation isn't strong, the blessing will collapse under its own weight. So the question becomes, not how long must I wait, but what within me must evolve. That is the real work. This is why some people repeat the same cycles for years, because while they wait, they never change. They keep asking for more, while thinking the same, reacting the same, believing the same. And so life keeps circling them back to the same lesson, not because life is cruel, but because life is just. It will never elevate you to a level your inner world cannot sustain. You may be tired, you may feel overlooked, but if you're still in the waiting, it means something in you still requires alignment. And once that alignment clicks into place, things can move swiftly, effortlessly, even miraculously. Delay is also the great revealer of truth. It shows you what you really believe. When the answer doesn't come right away, when the vision doesn't manifest instantly, do you hold to your faith or do you fall back into fear? Do you stand in your knowing or collapse into doubt? Do you believe the promise more than you believe your circumstances? These are the tests of delay. And the chosen must pass them, because their journey is not about mere success. It is about transformation. You are not just being shaped to receive the blessing, you are being shaped to embody it, to reflect it, to live in such alignment with it that it becomes your natural state. Some of your delays have been sent to protect you from your own unhealed parts. If the love had come while you were still insecure, it would have crushed you. If the success had come while you were still attached to the opinions of others, it would have destroyed your peace. If the platform had come while you were still seeking validation, it would have consumed you. Delay is not always opposition. Sometimes it is divine compassion. Sometimes it is a pause sent to make you whole before you're placed on display. The work of preparation is not glamorous. It happens in silence, in solitude, in sacred places where no one applauds. It is the inner wrestling, the discipline of thought, the rewiring of identity. It is the slow process of becoming a vessel worthy of what you've seen in your imagination. And most people give up during this time. They think the delay means not for me. But those who understand the laws of the unseen know better. They know that the waiting is not empty, it is full of instruction, full of growth, full of the quiet, invisible rearrangement of everything that no longer serves the next level. You are not forgotten, you are not being punished, you are being formed. And every day you choose to believe, despite the delay, you are moving closer. Every time you imagine instead of complain, align instead of beg, prepare instead of panic, you are collapsing time. The manifestation is not far away. It is simply waiting on you to meet it in spirit. And once you do, it arrives not with chaos, but with clarity. Not with struggle, but with ease. Because it is no longer being forced. It is being allowed. The delay was never a barrier. It was a mirror. And once you understand what it's showing you, the breakthrough becomes inevitable. Faith is not loud. It does not scream. It does not beg. It is quiet, steady, unshakable. Faith is not about saying the right words or reciting spiritual phrases. It is about how you live when no one is watching. It is about the assumptions you carry beneath your skin, the images you rehearse in your mind, the inner tone you speak to yourself with day after day. And more than anything, faith is assumption lived out, continuously, consistently, regardless of what the outside world tries to show you. It is the quiet conviction that what you cannot see is more real than what you can. It is the invisible root of every visible miracle. Most people mistake faith for hope. They think that wanting something very deeply is the same as having faith for it. But hope says, maybe it will happen, while faith says it already has. Hope looks toward the future, but faith lives from the future. It carries the emotional reality of the desired thing as if it were already present. It moves, speaks, breathes from that reality. It doesn't need confirmation because it is the confirmation. It doesn't seek signs because it is the sign. And when life seems to contradict it, true faith only deepens. Because it was never based on evidence, it was based on inner knowing. To walk in faith is to walk in the end result. To wake up in the morning not asking, will it happen today? But declaring it has already happened, and I am living in its unfolding. This is not delusion, it is alignment. It is the chosen one's sacred posture. Because life does not bend to your fear, it bends to your assumption. And if your assumption is that you are already in possession of what you asked for, then everything in your world will slowly but certainly shift to mirror that truth. This is not just spiritual principle, it is universal law. The world reflects your dominant state, always. But assumption is not something you do once. It is a state you live in. It is not a 5-minute meditation or a one-time visualization. It is a continuous immersion in the energy of fulfillment. It is returning to the vision when doubt creeps in. It is holding on to the inner image with the intensity of someone who refuses to be moved by appearances. You don't assume something once and then walk away. You dwell in it, you breathe it in, you let it shape your thoughts, influence your decisions, direct your emotions, and over time the assumption hardens into fact. That's why faith without feeling is incomplete. You cannot mentally recite affirmations while emotionally rehearsing fear. You cannot say I'm blessed while feeling anxious about lack. The heart and the mind must agree. The inner world must be saturated with the experience you wish to manifest. Not later, not when the signs begin to show, but now, before anything has shifted. Because that's when it counts, that's when it's tested. And that's when the roots grow deep enough to birth something real. Faith is not about pretending. It's about stepping into a new identity and refusing to come out of it, no matter what storms try to shake you.